are Lagos Talks 91.3.
Let's talk.
Welcome to the office on Lagos Talks 91.3. It's still Michelle Ago here, and with me is a special guest. I'll bring him in shortly, all right? I'll let the cat out of the bag soon. But let's first of all tell you what today's show is about. As you know, the office is proudly brought to you by the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, CIPM, and Lagos Talks 91.3. We have usually HR experts or other experts, field experts from all walks of life, speak to us, from the corporate world to discuss the workforce, the recruitment process, and other workplace-related issues and more. For you, yes, for you. Today we'll be talking about maintaining statutory and regulatory compliance. Looks like a lot of words, but don't worry, we'll explain all of that shortly. Now, to my guest, I have Barrister Jide Ologun here in the studio. He's ACIPM certified Vice President of Top Foundation, HR Practitioner, and Public Affairs Analyst. Now, Jide Ologun, National Development Advocate, law graduate of University of Benin and postgraduate of the prestigious Nigeria Law School, Victoria Island, Lagos, was called to the Nigerian Bar Association as a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria in December 1989. He thereafter commenced his career in legal unit, Central Bank of Nigeria, Lagos, where he made commendable innovative contributions to service delivery and productive policy implementations. Now, with a remarkable entrepreneurial spirit, he ventured into a successful private practice. His zeal and commitment to professionalism inspired him to widen his skills and, of course, competencies. Consequently, he's a member of various professional bodies. Jide is a prolific writer. He's not just a lawyer or an advocate or public affairs analyst or an entrepreneur. He's a prolific writer, a seasoned, highly sought after and revered trainer in public relation topics, leadership and best practices processes. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet our guest. We have Barrister Jide Ologun. Welcome to the studio, sir. Good evening.
Thank you very much. And I say Happy New Year once again.
Oh, Happy New Year.
All our great listeners.
Yes, thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's an honor to have you in our studio today, talking us through very important topics that concerns the Nigerian workforce and the job market in general. Today we'll be talking about maintaining statutory and regulatory compliance. First of all, I'd like us to break it down. We need to understand the differences. What is the difference between statutory and regulatory laws?
When you make reference to statutory laws, they refer to laws passed by a state or central government. And when you make reference to regulatory laws, they refer to rules that are issued by regulatory bodies appointed by the state or the central government. And we have examples that is close by, making reference to the COVID-19 experience. We have the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, making regulations. And this is an agency of the government under the Federal Ministry of Health. Mm-hmm. And of course, we must comply with the protocols they have given us. But these protocols are not listed in any enacted law, like the Constitution or laws of the state, but they are regulations. So you may want, for convenience, refer to them as supplementary laws that will enable the implementation of the basic laws. And for example, in the professional circle too, we have the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria that started in 1968 as an umbrella body for personnel management practitioners. And of course, in 1973, the name was changed to Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, and by Act number 58 of 1992, it became chartered as the sole body to regulate the practice of public relations in Nigeria. And that tells you straight that if you claim to be practicing public relations, human resources management in Nigeria, and you are not a member of the CIPM, you may be prepared to be nailed to the wall as a quack. And we are using this opportunity to address corporate organizations and the major stakeholders that if you have anyone practicing human resources management in your organizations without being a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, you have an opportunity to ensure that they are enlisted. If not, you will be supporting lawlessness. And we have several other agencies. We can also make reference to INEC,
Okay.
INEC is empowered by the Constitution of Nigeria to manage our electoral processes.
Of course.
And they also have the leverage to, come up with regulations that will ensure that they are effective in their services.
Rightfully said. Thank you. Now, under which does employment-related laws fall, or is it totally different from these regulations?
It's a bouquet of the laws we have, and this is an opportunity to roll out the sources of the Nigerian labor law. You have the Constitution, and I want to appeal to all our wonderful listeners that if you want to know the kernel of HR practice and the legal framework, check Section 17 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, and if time permits us, I'll try and roll out some of the provisions there. You have the legislations that come out from the National Assembly, and if you look at Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it stipulates that the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace, order, and good governance of Nigeria. So we have laws from that part of our national life. We have what we call the common laws, and this include decisions of the court, whether in English courts or Nigerian courts. We have the ILO convention. The International Labour Organization, came up, I think, as far back as 1919, and they are out to advance social and economic justice through setting international labor standards. And of course, we have subscribed to some of the recommendations, so you can apply them when you are, handling labor-related matters. And we have the Labor Act, we have the Trade Union Amendment Act, we have the Trade Disputes Act, National Minimum Wage Act, and you know that recently the minimum wage in Nigeria got lifted from 18,000 naira per month to 30,000 naira per month. And that is the law, but are we implementing it? And that is another question we need to answer. You have the Employee Compensation Act, you have the Factories Act, you have the National Housing Fund Act, you have the Pension Reforms Act, different kinds of laws that can help us manage the relationship in that sector of our national life, because the whole essence of having laws and regulations is to ensure that relationships are productive. And for example, you can see what we averted recently, the labor union coming out to say we are embarking on strike just because of the debate on the removal of subsidy. So there are several laws like that, but basically we have the Labor Act,
All right, thank you. Please share some statutory and regulatory requirements that organizations must be aware of and comply with.
Let me start with the grand norm, and we refer to the Constitution as the grand norm. That is the father of all the laws and regulations. If you look at Section 17, subsection 3 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the state shall direct its policy towards ensuring that all citizens, not just few, all citizens without discrimination on any group whatsoever, have the opportunity for securing adequate means of livelihood. You see, so
adequate means of livelihood.
Yes, adequate means of life. And the expression adequate features frequently in some of the provisions in the Constitution. In fact, the Constitution says that the government should provide you maximum happiness. It's there in the Constitution.
Oh, wow. We need to sue the
adequate
government.
Shelter, affordable, adequate food, And it says that the conditions of work are such that are just and humane. And adequate facilities for leisure, for social, religious, and cultural life provided. And it says that the health, safety, and welfare of all persons in employment are safeguarded and not endangered or abused. So these laws are there. It says that, there should be provision for public assistance for deserving cases. In fact, if you go to, I think, Section 16, for example, it stipulates that we should have reasonable living minimum wage, not just a minimum wage determined by the economy. No. Care for the old, pension for all citizens. So these provisions are there. And you now begin to have states coming up with their own laws. For example, now the Kaduna State Governor is coming up with an innovation in the country, projecting or pushing for 4-day working week. which according to him will give the workers time to rest on Friday, be more effective, work-life balance, but he has promised that the legal and statutory and regulatory framework will be given to it in January, because that was just an order that came from the governor. So you find all these as springboards forming our labor and employment laws. But
right.
specifically
All right.
on the Labor Act of Nigeria, there are some items that I believe our listeners should have access to. For example, forced labor is illegal completely, and employee contract. Within 3 months of the employee starting work, you must give a contract that guides, and it must be in writing, that guides that relationship. Then, talking about wages and salary, I just disclosed now that the minimum wage in Nigeria is 30,000 naira, except that when you benchmark that with the dollar, I think it's around $73 or thereabout per month. Then, average hours for working is there, holidays there. Then this will interest you, the maternity and paternity leave. You know, Lagos State and some other states are making provision for paternity leave. So it's not just the mother that will have the enjoyment of that privilege. But then the concept of paternity leave is not provided for in the Labor Act. So
not yet.
And that is where regulations can come in. You know, as we have the bicameral legislature at the national level, talking about the House of Senate and House of Reps, we also have the Houses of Assembly that can come up with laws to regulate practices within their sphere of influence.
All right. Thank you. Very interesting so far. So are you saying that any HR expert that is a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria is aware of this law and implementing it in their organization?
I should say that they are aware, because CIPM embarks on continuous training. They engage practitioners to upscale the knowledge base. But whether they practice them or not is another issue
How do you get feedback on compliance?
Yeah, we have different kinds of approaches in evaluating what goes on within the corporate environment. But you will agree with me that it may not be an easy thing in Nigeria. For example, now, how do you go and enforce the fact that the governor should pay the minimum wage? You see, when they tell you that the revenues are dwindling, when NNPC even threatened recently that there may be zero remittance to the federation account, and the states get funds from the federation account. So the implementation may not be an easy thing, but then at the regulatory level, we try to push out the best practice globally. What should be the ideal situation? Whether the stakeholders now comply with that is a different issue. And don't forget also that one of the challenges of compliance may have to do with the politicking, different kinds of influences coming. Then some stakeholders may decide not to give the rule of law its right of place. But having said that, I think we are making progress. And that is why law is very interesting. You can test the law in the courts. For example, look at what the governor of Rivers State did recently on the case of VAT, when he was confronted with the fact that revenue may dwindle from the federation account. And he started looking around. So how do we fund the state? And he discovered a gap in the constitution, that the federal government has not been constitutional and enabled or mandated to collect value-added tax from states. And he went to court and won the case. There is a very recent one also where the court has pronounced that the federal government cannot draw funds from the federation account to fund the police trust fund.
Wow.
Exactly. So you can challenge these things. And we have a special court for HR-related matters. We have the National Industrial Court of Nigeria set aside just for that purpose. So basically, you have a very sound legal framework and you have a very sound practice guide from the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. And that's why we are advising that corporate organizations who are interested in productivity and to be in tune with the global expectations must ensure that those practicing human resources management in their organizations are members of the Charter of Personnel Management of Nigeria, it can only add value, And in this part of the world, sometimes investors count some expenditure as cost. No, every value you add to those who drive your business is an investment, not a cost, and you will feel the positive impact on the productivity. So
it's good to see that the private sector is doing a lot as regards implementing the right laws and regulations that are being put in place because the government cannot do it alone. It's good to see the private sector at the forefront, and the CIPM is very effective with that as far as I can see with all that you've said. Yes, let's refer to tax laws now. You did mention it before we went on the break. Now, referring to tax laws, what are the key things that employers and employees should know? Taxes. I don't like that word.
Why? It's your primary responsibility to pay your tax before you enjoy the privilege of the infrastructural development and the basic amenities that come with it. When you consider the pay as you earn, called payee.
Okay.
Yeah, Nigeria has adopted payee system in calculating the personal income tax, and the tax rate progresses from 7% to 24% of taxable income. And of course, payee makes it simple that it can be deducted from source and of course channeled to the appropriate agencies that we go to the global environment to deploy it for visible benefits to the people
in the society.
So it's like tapping into the commonwealth for the common good. But how willing Nigerians are to pay tax is a different issue, and how the taxes are being engaged by the government entrusted with the implementation of visible projects, for that is another discussion. But basically, tax is a huge source of revenue. I mean, I just mentioned the case of value-added tax. So, and as a responsible employee, you got to pay your tax. And whether you have a choice is another question, because it's deducted from source. So I think my address should be to the employers to ensure that they remedy these taxes to the relevant quarters.
Right. When it comes to taxes, I think another bottleneck or delay with people not paying their taxes is the sensitization involved and the process. Of course, you've mentioned it's taxed at source, but that's when you're working in an proper organization. There are other people who run small businesses, small scale businesses that really do not know about how much they should be paying for tax or even how to pay for taxes.
I think
there's a lot of gap with the education.
Lagos State has simplified that. You can value yourself. You can go to a bank, do self-assessment and pay. The rates are there. And let people realize the value of paying taxes. You may need some special favors. Let me classify it as favors in our climes, that you may have to come up with your tax profile, and it portrays you as a decent citizen, as a patriotic citizen. Because like I started on the issue of tax, it is your primary responsibility. And don't consider it as a cost. And of course, as you demand value from the society, you must also add value to the society.
Very important. So I was just making examples with small business owners and people in startup organizations. I would like them to learn the basic statutory requirements that must be followed to start a business in Nigeria. What are the basic statutory requirements that must be followed?
You need to register your business to
Number
the
one.
Corporate Affairs Commission.
All right.
Then you need to register with the tax agencies. For example, at the federal level, FIRS.
Okay.
Then at the state level, the local government level. Then you need to find out some of the permits that you need from the local government area where you intend to operate.
Right.
Then you make sure that you register. And do you know there is a giveaway here, in the sense that you don't start paying tax immediately you start your business. So you have that window of a support for you, but you need that documentation to say, okay, I have registered with the tax office, I have my tax identification number, and that becomes relevant. And of course, you open a bank account and you try to observe what we call corporate governance. Keep your books very well.
Right.
And of course, if you want to run a structured business, you embark on what we call the pillars of business. And we have the pillars of business as a growth, survival, profitability, employee satisfaction, and of course, corporate social responsibility. Because some people just think it's all about making profit. No, when you make the profit, you give back to society. And of course, consult experts and professionals that can guide you. If you need any special registration, for example, if you want to embark on the business of clearing and forwarding, you have to go and apply for certificate from the customs and excise. So these things are there. And for Nigerians, I would just advise that why don't you get studios also? Google these requirements. They are there. And I want to encourage everyone today, you don't need to be great to start, but you must start to be great. So it doesn't matter if you have an idea that is profitable, an idea that is feasible, you can start your business. Dangote did not start yesterday. Now he's building a refinery that may bail out the whole nation. So start running with that idea, conceptualize it, get professionals to advise you on it, and approach the relevant agencies for the documentations. And these are not rocket science. Of course,
Of course not.
Just need to be bold.
That's all. That's all. And of course, be informed with every step of the way. Thank you so much. It's been such a great conversation today, and we do not have enough time to go on and on. We would love to, because there's so many startups or budding entrepreneurs listening who are jotting down and cannot wait to just pounce into the market and do things professionally and responsible, like you rightly said. But hopefully we'll have you back soon so we can explore even more topics around the subject matter.
I look forward to that. And let me just tell everyone listening to us that never ascribe greatness to others. You are great. So go out there and start that business. And you'll be surprised at how God will support you to excel. So you are the next success story. Go ahead.
Just waiting to happen. Barrister Jide Ologun is my guest today. Thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate you.
Thank you too.
We are Lagos Talks 91.3.
Let's